Hello, my name is Jenna, and I am a developer at Melonport. Melonport is the private company based in Switzerland that develops the Melon protocol, which is an open source project. So the goal for today is for me to give you an update of where we are. It's a project that is already 2 years old, so yeah, we wanted to give an update on where we are and where we're going for the next 12 months. So I'm just going to start by presenting Melon briefly for those who are not familiar with it. So before starting, just maybe setting up the scene of which problem we're trying to solve, what is it that we're trying to do. So the asset management industry is an $84 trillion industry that has yet to be transformed. It is extremely inefficient, expensive, time and energy consuming. If you want to set up a fund today or to run your own hedge fund, investment fund, whatever, it can cost you tremendous amount of money. It's extremely cumbersome because the processes are cumbersome. And the reason for that is that this industry runs on extremely outdated technology. So it's one of the very few industry that hasn't been really digitized. So that's one thing. And the second thing is that we have two very important beliefs. The first one is that crypto is a new asset class. That means that we think that institutional fund managers will want in the very near future to include crypto in their portfolio. And the second belief is a little bit more long-term, but we strongly believe that all the assets that we know today, stocks, bonds, whatever, will be tokenized. So will be brought to the blockchain under a digital form. So knowing this, we thought the current infrastructure of asset management is not ready and is not able to handle this kind of new asset management. So we don't have the tools to properly and efficiently run investment funds. Enter Melon. So Melon is a decentralized asset management system. It's, so the Melon protocol is a set of smart contracts that allows anyone to set up a fund and to manage a fund, to have investors, etc., etc. Another way to put it is that the Melon protocol is a set of rules that are coded into smart contracts, and those rules determine how digital assets can be spent once they're held into a Melon fund. And those rules are meant to protect the investor and the fund manager from each other's potential malicious behavior. So we like to call our funds technology-regulated funds, technology-regulated investment funds. Basically, you can see it as what Bitcoin did for accounting, Melon is doing for asset management. So I'm not sure if we can see properly. I can't from here, but this is just to show you a little bit how the Melon protocol looks in a somewhat simplified version. So if I can, yeah. So in the center you have the Melon fund, which is like the core. It's a standardized smart contract that that contains all the rules and internal accounting of your fund. And to that you plug in a suite of modules. Can you read what is written here, or not at all? No? Okay, I'm just going to say it because I don't know why it's like that. It shouldn't be. So you have 3 modules that you plug into your fund, and that basically allows you to create your fund in a tailored way to your needs. So you have the compliance module, which basically determines who can and cannot invest in your fund. You can have an open-ended fund, you can have a closed-ended fund, you can whitelist addresses, etc., etc. Then you have in the middle the price feed module. So the price feed module is basically you have a price feed provider. It gives prices that are put on the blockchain, and then those prices are used to calculate the value of your fund, the value of your assets, of your share price. And the last module is the risk management module. So basically, that's the module that restricts the behavior of the fund manager and kind of says what a manager can do or cannot do. One example is, for instance, there's something very common in traditional asset management. You can't have more than 5% of your AUM invested in the same asset. So that's a rule. That's a very simple rule. What we do is that we code it into a smart contract. There are many rules that can be coded into a risk management, so that's why it's a module, so that we can build it in a modular way. And then finally, your fund obviously is integrated with some exchanges so that you can trade your assets. So it can be integrated with decentralized exchanges right now. In the future, we want to be able to interact with centralized exchanges, but still keeping the whole protocol decentralized. So that's a challenge for the next few months. Right now, we're using the exchange Oasis DEX that was developed by the MakerDAO team. Okay, so that's our stack. So on the top, you have our smart contract, which is our backend that runs on the Ethereum virtual machine. Then in the middle, you have a JavaScript interface. It's a JavaScript library, kind of basic. It's just like a more intuitive and friendly way for developers to interact with our smart contracts. And then at the bottom, you have our front end, which is the user interface from which most of the people would access Melon. It is deployed on IPFS and also as a Parity dApp, so you can find it in the Parity browser. So this stack, as you can see, is completely decentralized. So I really want to emphasize the fact that everything that we do, we aim for the maximum amount of decentralization. That allows us to, offer an open source software that is reliable, permissionless, and ownerless. So we don't really own it. It's kind of like intended to be more of a public good. So we have been running on the testnet, on the Coven testnet for a few months, and last week we launched and deployed our smart contracts to the mainnet. So we wanted to kind of like share our experience with you, like we learned some lessons, etc. So we're gonna do that now. So before, still I can't see properly. Before launching to the mainnet, we wanted to do a last kind of stress test, kind of battle test, the back end and the front end in a realistic environment. So we ran a competition of fund managers, and that was an extremely valuable experience because we had over 700 people creating funds. So for us, it was a good way to to see what was wrong, what needed to be fixed or changed. And yeah, the top 100 of the best fund managers shared the pool price of 550 melons. So it was a funny way to engage people and have users, etc. The funny thing is that some students, some kids 8 years old from a school in Ireland participated in the competition, and actually 2 of them managed to be in the top 100. So that's to say it's not that hard to use a decentralized application. It's possible. Yes, so after that, literally 1 week after this competition, we launched to the mainnet. The full set of smart contracts is deployed. The front end is deployed, so that means that anyone can right now create a decentralized fund on the Ethereum blockchain. But what I want to show here is that we deployed our own fund run by Melonport, and you can't see it here, but you would see in the AUM, so the assets under management, we put 500 melon. And the goal for that is that we want people to try to hack our smart contracts and to try to extract those 500 melon out of the contract. We made a public claim that if anyone is able to extract those 500 melon, using exclusively technical means, they will rightfully be entitled to keeping them. So again, there are some savvy people in this room, so please try to hack us. That would be great. I mean, to try. So yeah, a couple of lessons learned, what went right, what went less right. On the back-end side, on the smart contract, so we had like 3 intense independent audits prior to launch, so we were very well prepared. We made many changes, design changes, architectural changes, etc. So the deployment on the mainnet was fairly smooth from this side, although one silly thing that we really didn't consider, and it was like kind of last minute, one of our contracts is super long, so just as an advice, check that your contract size will be deployable on the mainnet, because there is actually a limit to the size. So that's something that happened to us. We had to kind of like remove something, so it's not ideal, but that's what happened. That was a detail, but one thing that was actually more important in terms of lessons that we learned, the price feed module. So first of all, it's extremely inefficient and expensive to run a price feed. On the mainnet, we update the price feed, meaning that we put new prices onto the blockchain every hour. And for 2 weeks of doing that, it costs us about $3,000. So it is not, it's not sustainable. It's not something that can be, even just like having new prices once per hour, it's not acceptable for fund managers. So we realized that. I mean, we already kind of knew that, but it was really, really clear after the mainnet deployment. And the price feed is actually a very security critical part of what we're doing. Actually, we had an experience that the price provider, so we have several price modules. We have Oraclize, we have Thomson Reuters, who built a price feed module also for us. And if one of our price providers provided like wrong prices for Dogecoin at some point, it was like a price almost, I mean, very close to 0, and that had some implications, because we were making markets and we were taking the price from this price provider. So we actually ended up selling some assets for almost 0, which allowed people to, it was on testnet, so it was still okay, but still. So that allowed people to like go up in the ranking by far. So it was a mistake that we didn't see coming, but now we learned this lesson. So price feed is a big subject. Oraclize, I mean, oracles on the blockchain, etc. So on the front-end side, the challenge was to build an application that is fully decentralized, so that no server, no database to like kind of help the front end. Needs to be secure, because potentially people are gonna manage high values assets into melon funds, and it has to be usable also. As you know, the UX in the blockchain world is not great. We can do much better. So it was very, very challenging for us. What was good is that we found super easy deploying a decentralized application. It can sound counterintuitive, but it takes a lot of time to put together a decentralized application. But once it's done, the deployment is so easy, because you're not responsible for anything. You just push your code to IPFS, and then that's it. You don't have a server to maintain. You don't have a database. You don't have to fear server downtime, nothing like that. So for front-end developers, it's really convenient. And also, we managed to get to a point where we have what we like to call a truly adaptive dApp. So basically, you access our protocol from the same address, melon.fund, and the application knows in which context it's being accessed, and therefore serves you what we consider as best. So if you're trying to access from your phone or from your computer, but you don't have an Ethereum node running, you'll be directly served the Coven testnet version, because we don't want people to be able to play with value without a secure environment. But if you're on your computer and you actually run a mainnet node, then you will be able to access the mainnet version and create an actual fund and invest in it with real value. And on the downsides, yeah, from a user perspective, it requires a highly secure environment if you want to be on the mainnet. So it kind of requires like an extra effort from the user part to spin up a parity node, sync it on the mainnet. It can take some time. So that's a downside, but we can't sacrifice security for that. Otherwise, yeah, because the front end is fully decentralized, we make like an enormous amount of RPC calls to the node, and it's really crazy. But that's the only way so far that we have to kind of like bring all the information, and there is a lot of information to bring to a fund manager. But still, I mean, we're trying to improve that, kind of like try to reduce the number of calls made, but it's still not optimal. And of course, being fully decentralized, the experience can be slow sometimes. But if you have your local node, it's usually it's fairly decent. Yeah, a decentralized application will always be slower than something that were used in like the Web 2.0. So in light of those lessons that we've learned, these are some changes that we're bringing to our smart contracts, right? I mean, we're in the process of doing that right now. So we are deprecating the idea of having the price feed as a module because it's too much of a security critical part. So Melonport will implement the price feed, the standardized price feed, and it will be operated by the community. So that's one important change. Then we are opening up the invest redeem to any ERC20 token. So far you could invest in a fund using the Melon token or Ether. And right now, I mean, from the next iteration on, you will be able to invest in a fund in any ERC20 token. So that's really interesting. You could denominate your fund with DAI, for instance, if you want to be, you know, to have like your performance calculated against something that is more stable. And lastly, we're introducing a governance fee, which I'll talk a little bit more a little bit later. So what's next now that we are on the mainnet? Many things. There are many iterations to come, improvements, etc. But I just want to come back, and again, I don't think we can see very much, but that was our roadmap a little bit over a year ago. So the Melon project was actually meant to be completed in 3 phases. The first phase was everything that happened before the token sale, so before February of last year. And the second phase was actually moving from a proof of concept to deploying all the protocol to the mainnet, being audited, launching a bug bounty program, and having a UI. So we can now say that we've successfully completed the phase 2 of the project, and we're now starting the phase 3. So phase 3 is going to be the main focus for 2018, and it's about designing a governance system and at the end, deploying the final version by Melonport, and then just handing over the maintenance of the protocol and everything to the community, so to the token holders. So the goal is to make it self-sustainable and autonomous, so that Melonport, as a private company, can step down from the control of the project. So that's what we're going to be doing. One thing that has changed also since this roadmap 1 year ago. So the Melon token was supposed to have some inflation around 10% to reward for module building and module development. But the fact is that a year ago we had like maybe, I think it was 5 or 6 different modules that developers could build. And after a year of development, we actually come down now to compliance and risk management. We just removed also the price feed, so now there are only 2 modules. So the compliance we found is actually going to be very straightforward, and there are not too many different implementations to do there. There are new standards such as the ERC 725 token to manage identity, these kind of things. So we don't think that it's necessary to really incentivize development there. And risk management it's still a module category where we can do many things. So Melonport will develop, implement a full suite of risk management modules, but we won't incentivize development from third party, which doesn't mean that people can't build their own module. They can, but they just won't be rewarded by Melonport. Because we deem that we're going to be shipping something that is complete enough that it doesn't need to incentivize like much more development around. So, so we've started thinking about governance a little bit. I mean, that's going to be a long 12 months ahead to kind of sort out governance and something that is fully autonomous. But these are our first thoughts, I would say. So obviously the token holders can submit proposals, improvement proposals for the protocol. The token holders can elect the technical council, who is going to be responsible for operating the price feed, which is a security feature. Since the price feed is security critical, we think that it should be operated by the people who have a high stake in the ecosystem. And obviously the technical council will be maintaining the protocol, upgrading the contracts when necessary, etc. In return for electing this technical council, the token holders will be rewarded for their governance efforts, and they will share all the governance fees that are going to be paid by the funds, by all the funds existing. So the reward is going to be for active token holders, meaning we haven't defined actually what an active token holder means, but it really means someone who is involved in at least the voting that happened there. So yeah, right now, what can you do really with Melon on Ethereum at the moment? There are things that you can do. There are things that would be a little bit more complicated. But for instance, you could right now run a fund managed by a trading bot. So there is the JavaScript library for anyone to build a bot. We actually build one. You can plug it into the fund and just run it. So you can just actually run a fund without doing anything. So that's pretty cool. You can manage a crypto fund already with an ERC20 long strategy. There are like new stable coins like DAI where you could, where you can at least get some, maybe not hedge, but at least, you know, some stability also. And you could manage a pension fund, a mutual fund, just any fund that does not require to do high frequency trading, because as you know, Ethereum is not ready for that yet. But it's on the way. So as soon as Ethereum is able to handle more traffic, you can really run any fund on Melon. And on our side, we're also looking into optimization path. One of them is the development, or at least the research around the Melon chain, which would be a domain-specific chain for asset management, where things would be extremely cheaper and also extremely much faster, and that would be integrated within the Polkadot environment. So yes, we're coming to the end. For the people who would like to get involved, there are many ways. If you're a dev, we're always hiring. You can try to hack the bug bounty fund. We organize a hackathon in May, and for everyone, anyone can try to set up a fund on the testnet, on the mainnet, or participate in competitions. We'll be running many competitions, so there'll be like many prizes to win. Thank you. I can take questions if there are any.
Thank you. I presume the funds, the Melonport funds are considered by regulators as security?
It is unclear so far what would be the classification. I mean, there has not been any official claim about that, but yes, I would expect that a fund itself would be a security. Just to precise, we are building the software. We're really not dealing with the whole regulation thing. We have a separate entity which is called MAMA. It's a trade association for asset management on blockchain, where it's not only us, it's many people from the ecosystem. We're trying to convey a unified message to the regulator to kind of like push forward for a favorable environment.
Okay, because if it's security, your investors will be subject to KYC and standard AML process. And
Yes.
would you give support to that to asset manager?
So what we do is that we have this compliance module, and it's exactly intended to be used this way. So it's a module that you can, the fund manager will be able to do the KYC. He can pick any KYC provider that can whitelist the addresses that have been KYC'd. So yes, we design it in a way where it's possible to do the KYC, but also in a way where it's possible to be completely open.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Thank you.